What is really happening on that hill in Bosnia-Herzegovina, known for the presence of the white stones? Prepare yourself, because the message echoing from that place, a desperate and universal plea for change in the human heart, is the exact answer to the anguish and uncertainty the whole world is feeling right now. In the midst of seemingly terrible times, where faith is constantly tested by news and personal adversity, millions turn to Medjugorje, an epicenter of prayer where, for decades, it is believed that urgent monthly messages are delivered to Mirjana, calling for intensified prayer, genuine faith, and, crucially, radical forgiveness. This is a spiritual force so powerful that it spreads, even in the form of a message, to touch and challenge your life today, proving that, even in the worst-case scenario, the path to peace is open if we accept this profound conversion. The urgency of the appeal is palpable, as it speaks directly to the crisis of meaning affecting humanity. Before we delve into the urgent details of this message, I invite you to an immediate act of faith. Write in the comments now the names of relatives or friends who are in urgent need of a special prayer, so that we can immediately include them in our powerful rosary chain. The central essence that tirelessly echoes from the Hill of White Stones is the call to pure prayer, a spiritual discipline that goes far beyond the mechanical repetition of words. Our Lady, in these communications, insists that prayer is the pillar, the vital nourishment, and not just a spiritual accessory to be used in moments of despair. In a world saturated with distractions, where inner peace has become a rare and expensive commodity, the message urges the faithful to reclaim the habit of praying with their hearts, transforming routine into a continuous act of dialogue and surrender to God. This means elevating our state of mind above the daily chaos, dedicating specific time not to asking, but to listening and simply being in the divine presence, reinforcing that this connection is the only way to sustain faith in times of great tribulation and silent wars that we face internally and globally. Without this firm and constant foundation of prayer, faith becomes weak and vulnerable to the snares of fear and discouragement, dissipating quickly like smoke in the wind. Intimately linked to prayer is the imperative of active faith, the second great pillar emanating from Medjugorje, which must be experienced concretely in everyone's daily life, especially when everything seems to go wrong or suffering intensifies. The message received by Mirjana consistently warns of the need to reject cynicism, corrosive doubt, and the mentality that we are alone in dealing with our problems. In this context, faith is not merely a passive feeling or belief, but a driving force capable of moving mountains, or in this case, removing the stumbling blocks from our own lives. This faith manifests itself when, even in the face of absolute darkness and catastrophic news, we choose to trust unwaveringly in divine providence and the greater plan, transforming anguish into an opportunity for witness. Our Lady constantly warns that without this revitalized faith, the words of prayer become empty, and people grope through life, easily susceptible to false hopes and temporary solutions that only mask the deep spiritual wound. One of the most challenging and perhaps the most revolutionary points of this message lies in the appeal to unconditional forgiveness, which is presented not as a favor to the offender, but as an essential liberation for the soul that forgives. Our Lady strongly urges that resentment, accumulated bitterness, and the inability to forgive are poisons that consume the heart and are the true cause of much of our unhappiness and lack of peace. Forgiveness is the key to disarming one's own soul and finding spiritual refuge. In the alleged apparitions, emphasis is placed on the urgency of reconciling with one's neighbor before approaching God, stressing that difficult times demand the complete removal of the emotional barriers that separate us from one another. The profound lesson here is that the act of forgiving connects us directly with divine love, purifying intentions and opening space for grace and healing to reach where before there was only pain and resentment trapped in the past. From forgiveness flows naturally love for one's neighbor, a calling that is not abstract, but demands practical and immediate manifestation in the social and family life of each person who receives the message. The exhortation is not limited to feeling affection for people. It demands concrete action of help and mercy, especially towards the most needy, the marginalized, and those who find themselves on the margins of society. The spiritual message received in Medjugorje makes it clear that it is not enough to pray and have faith. It is necessary to transform these pillars into active service, living charity daily, with an attentive and compassionate gaze that sees the suffering of others. It is in selfless help and the act of serving that the faithful truly prove their conversion, and Our Lady warns that, in times of global crisis and scarcity, the only currency of value that will remain will be generosity and sharing, combating the individualism and coldness that have become so entrenched in the modern world. All these exhortations converge on a single, irreplaceable point: complete conversion. The purpose of the monthly messages, particularly those that arrive on significant dates or during times of great global tribulation, is not only to comfort, but above all to shock and awaken the world to the urgent need for a radical life change. The message criticizes the superficiality of faith that is content with mere presence in religious rituals, without true transformation of heart and mind. Conversion requires a reorientation of all priorities, placing God at the center and living every aspect of life, work, leisure, family, relationships, under the light of Christian teachings in an integral and unhypocritical way. Consistency is key. Living what one preaches, avoiding the spiritual lukewarmness that paralyzes and prevents the genuine growth of the soul, warning that indifference is a greater danger than adversity itself. The relevance of the Hill of White Stones as a spiritual beacon for humanity lies precisely in the constancy of these messages. Although the monthly communications are addressed to Medjugorje and given on specific dates, their content transcends the calendar, serving as a continuous and universal reminder that the time for hesitation is over. Our Lady, through this form of communication, is not establishing new doctrines, but rather reaffirming, with clarity and maternal urgency, the forgotten foundations of Christian life: to pray, to believe, to forgive, and to love actively. The insistence on repeating these simple truths demonstrates that, even in centuries of technological advancement, the human heart still needs to be reminded of the basics, for the greatest conflict unfolds within ourselves. Thus, the hill functions as a spiritual thermometer, indicating the fever of the human soul and the exact remedy to cure it: the simple and honest return to the commandments of love. When confronted with the turbulent scenario of daily life, from stressful traffic and financial worries to inevitable family conflicts, we realize that the spirit of the message of Medjugorje must be injected into each of these interactions. The preaching of genuine faith happens through daily patience. The act of forgiveness occurs when we choose to swallow our pride instead of starting an argument, and conversion is realized in the decision, each morning, to seek peace, not discord. The invitation to pray incessantly means making each task a moment of meditation and offering. The world doesn't need more empty words, but living examples of conversion. These terrible times demand that we be beacons for others, transforming our lives into a constant prayer, witnessing the joy that comes from a purified and forgiving heart, ensuring that peace in the heart is not a theory, but a reality that inspires more conversions. And now, reinforce our chain of intercession by writing once again in the comments the names of the loved ones who will be included in the final prayer of our rosary. What did you think of this urgent message that continues to echo from the heart of Bosnia, and the exhortation for prayer, forgiveness, and faith to be our shields in these difficult times? Has your faith been transformed by the clarity of these principles? Share your honest opinion about the impact of the need for an active prayer life and the power that immediate forgiveness brings to your daily life. If this story resonated deeply with you and gave you renewed encouragement to live these pillars of faith, don't forget to like this video, share it with everyone who needs an urgent spiritual revival, and, of course, subscribe to the channel so we can continue together analyzing and experiencing the events that shape our faith. Your participation is essential for this message to reach as many people as possible.